Twice Long. This is James, aka JP Harker, coming to you with another video. Today I'm going to be talking about James Bond and a little bit about the book to film comparison. Now I've chosen two books. I've only got one of them to wave at you because I couldn't for the life of me find my copy of You Only Live Twice. But this is From Russia with Love, both original Bonds by Ian Fleming. Now I chose these two because this one is incredibly loyal to the book and You Only Live Twice is incredibly disloyal to the book, and they're arguably the best examples of that. Casino Royale, the new one with Daniel Craig, that was pretty good. It had a lot of loyalty, but I think From Russia with Love still pips it to the post. So let's have a look. From Russia with Love. The basic premise is that we have the enemy, which in the film is Spectre and in the book is Smersh. They want to capture James Bond by a fairly obvious trap of luring him with a beautiful girl who says she's in love with him and who is willing to give up a Lecter decoder if he marries her and brings her to the West. He goes over there, he meets the legendary Kerim Bey. He realizes eventually that it's all a setup and that Red Grant is there to kill him, and it ends reasonably happily with, in the film it ends reasonably happily, in the book it ends cliffhangery, shall we say. I'm half and half as to whether to spoil it, and I probably will. But the overall plot is more or less the same. For the film they change Smersh for Spectre because they don't want to make it to the Russians are the enemy, so they have it that Spectre is manipulating a loyal Russian. Rosa Klebb in the book is a little bit more actively repulsive. She's described as looking like the world's ugliest whore, which is a lovely expression, I'm sure. And that's by Tatiana, who's the girl who's the bait. We have a bit more backstory for Red Grant. We learn that he's Irish, and that he's got this whole backstory back in Ireland where he was a murderer, whereas in the film, it's very sort of, this is Robert Shaw, look how fit and strong he is. He's a murderer, that'll do you. In the books, Bond, I should have put a mark in here, Bond doesn't actually show up until about a quarter of the way through, because they've been building it up so much, and strange because he's a known character in the series, but it's all about the setup and how we're going to capture and kill James Bond, and he himself doesn't make an appearance till quite late on. Yes, I've put a little note. Yes, I am going to spoil it. The book is like 60 years old. The end of the film, we have Rosa Klebb being killed, and happily ever after, so to speak, your standard Bond film ending. Him and the girl go off in his boat ride and are going to get it on, I'm sure. In the books, it's a little bit reminiscent of when Conan Doyle threw Sherlock Holmes off a cliff. You wonder if Fleming was trying to kill off Bond, because we end with Bond attacked by Klebb and blacking out, and it's left ambiguous. And I rather think, I could be wrong, but the vibe I got from it was Bond pivoted slowly on his heel and crashed headlong to the wine-red floor. Was he doing what Conan Doyle was doing with Sherlock Holmes and thinking, I'm tired of writing this character, I'm going to write a convincing ending, as Conan Doyle did with Sherlock Holmes, but then realised either, no, I still want to write about him, or this is the only thing people will pay me to read about, and decided to carry on with it. And which of those it is, I don't know. This is pure conjecture. But apart from that, it's mostly loyal. Yes, the film has a lot more chase scenes and boats blowing up, and the wonderful Spectre Control Center where they're all doing judo and leaping over stuff. And they have his girlfriend Sylvia Trench, who I think is the only Bond girl to appear twice. But they're little things. They don't really affect the plot. The plot of From Russia with Love is pretty much the same. And cynical man that I am, I think that's one of the reasons it's one of the best films. Most sort of purists tend to cite From Russia with Love and, of the more modern ones, Casino Royale, as being the better films, and by huge coincidence they're the ones who are most like the books. Who'd have thunk it? Yeah, that's my thought on that one. And I will now look, and I can't wave it at you because I couldn't find the damn thing, so I'll just show you the back of From Russia with Love. You Only Live Twice. Now, I enjoyed this film mainly because I'd seen it when I was a kid, and it's got ninjas in it, and as an adult I am a ninjutsu martial artist and all of that. So I liked that film. But I read the book and I thought, you've literally just taken the names. And that did sort of shock me after things like Russia with Love and Casino Royale. Even Dr. No is similar, at least. But You Only Live Twice. The plot in the book is Bond is being sent to Japan essentially as a rest. He's being sent on this mission that they don't really take that seriously. There's this mysterious Dr. Shatterhand and his island of death. And it's basically a bloke who's taking in all the depressed people and saying, come and commit suicide here, because I've made this island full of poisonous plants and venomous animals. And it's a bit of a joke mission. And Bond is in this state of depression after the death of his wife and is sent to Japan, and he meets Tiger Tanaka and is, I think, renamed 7777 and called Bondo-san, which means priest. And he does his investigating, and it turns out it's Ernst Stavro Blofeld and I cannot for the life of me remember her name, but the woman who's actually responsible for killing Tracy. And he's there dressed in a suit of Western armour so he can wander the ground safely. And that's a bit silly, but at the end there's a fight, and Bond has learned his sort of ninja skills. There's a fight between Blofeld and Bond, where Blofeld has a sword and Bond has a bow, which is like a quarterstaff. And it's an interesting and well-written fight, and it shows an understanding of how the weapons work and a little bit of understanding of the martial arts. And I really enjoyed that. So now I watch the film where they've got a spaceship that eats other spaceships and a volcano base, and Blofeld is just this scarred bloke who runs off after stroking his cat for a bit. And I do think, it's a shame. It hasn't stopped me enjoying the film, but I would far sooner reread the book, or even better, see a faithful adaptation of the book, because, okay, Daniel Craig's not doing it anymore, but whoever they get in next, if they are doing this rebooting Bond, as they have done, that could be a really interesting thing to see, is if they would adapt more of the books. Don't remake From Russia with Love, that's perfect as it is. But if they adapted some of the, let's say, more, I'm trying to think of a nice way of putting it and not sort of butchered, the more liberated versions of the Bond books. If they remade some of those closer to the books, I think it could be very interesting to watch. That's my tuppence worth anyway. Yes, I just thought I'd share that as a little observation, that Russia with Love and You Only Live Twice, both perfectly watchable films, but one definitely better than the other, in my humble opinion. And the way they've worked with the books, and the way, as the films go on, they go further and further from the books, and then a new Bond comes in and they think, we'll make some that are closer to the books. then they go further and further. Then a new Bond comes in. They go, we'll make him closer to the books. And it's just a little observation I wanted to share with you. Well, I think I've banged on enough about James Bond for now, so I will leave you there and say this is James, aka JP Harker. Well,